You've heard this kind of argument before, right? It starts with one small, totally reasonable step and somehow ends in absolute total catastrophe. Well, today we're going to unpack that exact kind of flawed logic. Take this classic example. If we start using iPads in class, soon kids will stop reading books altogether. It sounds kind of plausible, doesn't it? It definitely taps into our worries about technology. But if you really stop and think about it, is that actually a solid argument? And yeah, that's really the big question, isn't it? Is this scary outcome actually inevitable? Or is it just a massive, massive leap in logic? Well, this type of argument has a name, and it's called the slippery slope fallacy. So, what is a slippery slope exactly? Let's dive in and really break this thing down. So, here's the textbook definition. The slippery slope fallacy is the assumption that one tiny first step is guaranteed to set off a chain reaction of terrible events. But, and this is the most important part, it makes this claim without sufficient evidence. That's the key. The whole argument is standing on a foundation of, well, nothing. You see, this argument isn't built on facts or logic at all. Nope. Its power comes from playing with our emotions. It preys on our natural caution and our fear of the absolute worst-case scenario. It's an appeal to fear, not to our reason. Okay, so if you want to get really good at spotting this fallacy out in the wild, you just have to learn its anatomy. It almost always follows this very predictable three-part structure. And here's that pattern laid out perfectly. It all starts with step one, a small, often pretty reasonable action. But then comes step two, which is the really weak link in the chain, a series of hypothetical events with zero proof. And that all leads to step three, the totally over-the-top catastrophic conclusion. The whole argument just falls apart because there's no real evidence connecting that first step to the last one. All right, now that we know this structure, let's go looking for some of these slippery slopes in the wild. Because trust me, once you know the pattern, you are going to start seeing this everywhere. This chart lays out some absolute classics. In debates about gun control, you'll hear that banning some types of firearms will inevitably lead to banning all of them, or that universal healthcare is just the first domino to fall on the way to a socialist government. And of course, the big one with technology, using AI for a few simple tasks will without a doubt lead to AI taking every single human job. You see the pattern, right? Each one makes a huge leap from one specific action to a crazy, unproven conclusion. Or how about this one? You could totally hear this at a local town hall meeting, right? It starts with something simple and, probably a good idea, more streetlights, but it escalates really, really fast into something way more sinister. The argument just jumps from A all the way to Z. It presents this terrifying outcome, a full-on surveillance state, but gives you absolutely zero evidence for how installing a few light bulbs would actually cause that to happen. It's a leap of faith, not a logical argument. Okay, so when you hear one of these arguments, how do you actually stop the slide? The good news is there's a pretty simple toolkit you can use to challenge this kind of flawed logic head-on. Your toolkit really just comes down to asking 4 smart questions. First, demand proof. Just ask, okay, where's the evidence for that? Second, question the links in the chain. Can you explain how this actually leads to that? Third, bring up other possibilities. Well, couldn't these other things happen instead? And finally, a really powerful one, look at the past. Has this ever actually happened before? So let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Why does spotting this stuff even matter? It's not just about winning an argument, It's about having better, more productive conversations. And this slide really nails it. These fallacious arguments just exploit fear, they stop progress in its tracks, and they make everyone angry and divided. But rational discussion, the kind that requires actual evidence and allows for nuance, that's what leads to better, smarter decisions for all of us. As our source material puts it, simply recognizing this fallacy leads to more rational decision-making and discourse. So in the end, spotting a weak argument doesn't just make you a better debater, it makes you a clearer thinker. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you hear someone make a dire prediction based on one little change, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop and check for a real logical link? Or are you just going to accept the slide?